The short answer is, yes, of course it is. If you made fun of Forspoken, then hey, you did it. You engaged with awful dialogue and discussed it without trying to convince anyone that you're smart.
Did I just do that?
And that's the be-all end-all of it, isn't it? You're not trying to convince anyone how smart you are, so you lack pretense, and you can discuss whatever you want without sounding like Folding Ideas or Movie Bob. And there is, genuinely, a part of me that would like the conversation to end there, because I wish that was all there was to say. It should be that simple.
Crimes and misdemeanors. I thought it wasn't so much a movie as it was an essay of man in society. Although the topic of free will versus determinism is fascinating, I would hardly call it entertainment. Garth?
Sucked.
But it isn't. In reality, that Wayne's World clip has everything going for it. Wayne and Garth agree, and yet there's this huge perceived gap between the two, despite the sentiment being the same. We agree that Forspoken's writing sucks ass. So why is it that in my saying so, as an analytical writer, that I sound so much more lame and whiny? The implicit question beneath the title, if we agree that you can in fact talk about video game writing without sounding pretentious, is, so why don't more people talk about video game writing without sounding pretentious? I think I have the answer. And the answer is not because people suck or something likewise dismissive. I'll be explaining here why even the most good faith discussions of video game writing turn into intellectual mud pits, even when they don't want to. Let's get into it. The reason this is a video in the first place, other than as a veiled attempt to talk about something I'm passionate about while distancing myself from the people I consider to be ruining the art form, is that I think writing is totally unique in this one particular aspect. It is easier to talk about writing if you sound pretentious. It's easy mode. The act of discussing it in depth using the path of least resistance will make you sound like a whiny, terminally online freak. And it takes more effort to not come across that way. If you remember the term ludonarrative dissonance, you'll also remember what a joke it became. For those unaware, it's a term that refers to when the actions a video game character takes do not mirror the actions taken by the player, whether as insisted by the game or organically. Examples are Lara Croft crying over a deer in the Tomb Raider reboot, then mowing down dudes by the dozen, and John Marston being an affable gentleman in cutscenes, but a rockstar player character at all other times. The phrase became overused, and in its overuse, the problem became overstated. Almost as a matter of sheer density. Can ludonarrative dissonance ruin a story? Theoretically, yeah, sure. Anything's possible. But what game has it ruined? Everyone still loves Red Dead Redemption, why wouldn't they? The same thing happens in the sequel, and it's mostly used as levity to contrast against a dour, hard-bitten story. Would the game really be improved if we limited the characters' actions outside of cutscenes? Don't people have fun when they act outside the bounds of the game's prescribed character traits? I don't think I'd be wrong in saying this is the kind of thing mostly poured over by the people who need their video games to be movies. The kind of person who forgives a David Cage game for being a movie, even when it's a particularly bad movie. Not that there isn't fun to be had there either. The reason I bring up ludonarrative dissonance is because it's a fancy-pants word for something that exists but doesn't have a better shorthand. If you care about it, that's how you'll describe it during development, when criticizing, even internally when experiencing it. The shortest alternative I can think of is when the player doesn't match the character, and that doesn't capture the concept very well, and it takes up more space. The easier alternative is the fancy version. It's the path of least resistance. Hideo Kojima's writing is ponderous and overly exposition-heavy. The longer version of that is Kojima likes to tell you things rather than show you them in long, overly wordy philosophical discussions. The first sentence that I said is the easier one, despite sounding more pretentious. Hatred's lack of levity can also be described as not having any fun with itself, in contrast to Postal, its predecessor. But lack of levity is just easier to say. If you get the phrase, you get the concept, that's the point. To use the vocabulary that comes with media literacy is to both take the easy way out and to sound big and fancy and smart and pretentious. I'm thrilled to see the gaming public at large start to reject these shortcuts, or at least reject the idea that using them puts you above anyone else. I believe that writing, especially video game writing, is unique in that talking about it in depth makes you sound more like a dweeb than instead of genuinely smart, but that's only because of social factors. If an artist tells me that the reason I don't like a piece of art despite wanting to like it is because of unclear conveyance of form or uneven anatomy, then one of two things will happen. I'll either understand what they mean and discuss further, or I won't understand and then either say, tell me more, or, you're probably right, because it sounds smart. But much like what happened to ludonarrative dissonance, terms related to writing became so overused, whether to justify bad takes, prove the writer's a big smarty pants, or both, I no longer trust anyone who uses that vocabulary. You can't convince me of the fascist Batman beats up poor people take. I do not care if Winston Churchill himself were telling me I'm blocked off from the very concept. It's been done too many times and it's been more pretentious every single time. And that's a bad thing. I mean, granted, the Batman take is so bad that it doesn't deserve any additional attention, but this kind of thing does not compel readers or viewers. It drives them away. Shouldn't the hope with any discussion be to draw others in? In my many observations, the discussion around video game writing consistently repulses others. There's more to be said about the differences in taste between those who write games and those who actually like games, but it all comes down to the fact that people who want to talk about video game writing are more likely to encourage more "life is strange."
Do you hear that fire alarm? That means you should be outside.
I had to use the bathroom.
Girls always use that excuse.
Excuse for what?
For whatever you're up to. Your face is covered in guilt.
The alarm tripped me out.
Then trip on out of here, missy.
And less likely to encourage more binary domain.
Any famous last words?
Yeah, tell your mama I love her.
Which people rightfully enjoy, but somehow feels less like writing. If you don't see what I'm talking about, if your gut doesn't get it on a basic level, then you're not who I'm talking to, nor am I interested in convincing you. But if you wanted an answer to can you talk about video game writing without being pretentious, then firstly, yes, of course you can. It just takes a little more work that any half-decent writer should be happy to undertake. And secondly, there's probably a reason that you wanted an answer to that question in the first place. Writing and video games ought to blend effortlessly. Writing provides context, and context makes gameplay more fun. Mario is more fun because there's a giant lizard who stole a princess. The Bowser fight in Mario 1 isn't great, in a game otherwise full to bursting with revolutionary gameplay concepts. The Bowser fights are overly simple, take less than 5 seconds, and can be tanked with a single mushroom. But it's great, because it's Bowser! That makes it more of a fantasy, more of a journey. A giant blank rectangle stand-in would not have the same effect, and I'm convinced that even the most stoic gameplay purist would, in fact, must agree. Yet talking about video game writing seems to piss off entire communities of gamers, and ultimately the reason I'm making this video is because I can't blame them. I'm with you. I love video game writing, it's my art, but I feel that frustration. As a favor to me, forget the discussions that have annoyed you. Forget the Kotakus and the Waypoints and the Twitter media literati. Keep in mind this simple concept. Writing that makes you enjoy a game more is good writing. Writing that makes you enjoy a game less is bad writing.
To who? To whom? And your goddamn father. Sorry, my face is tired from dealing with everything.
And what's more, I think it's possible to take back video game writing discussion from bloviating think pieces and vanity videos. It'll take extra work, and it'll take just a touch of shamelessness to say we like the writing of something, without having to explain its faults. But I think it's possible. When someone asks you, do you really want to save a damsel in distress so badly when it's such a trope, and a problematic one at that, you answer, yes I do actually. I like damsels, and that one's in distress, and it would feel more impactful to me if I beat this boss in order to save her. So when I say let's get back to basics, let's really get back to basics. What are some of the simpler moments in video games that made you feel alive? They don't have to be moral choices, they don't have to be intellectual, they can just feel cool. It can make you just feel like a hero. For my money, I think Hi-Fi Rush did a great job of that exact thing, and Final Fantasy VI is made up almost entirely of moments like this. It starts with not being ashamed of the writing you like. Tell me your favorites. Not only do I want to hear it, but it would help out the video a lot if you did. Don't forget, if you'd like to stop my Patreon... If you'd like to stop my Patreon from happening, if you'd like to support the creation of my game Inverse Ninjas, or even these videos, swing by my Patreon. I would love to see you there. And thanks for stopping by.